What family secret do you know, that you're not supposed to know? My Welsh great-grandmother had passage booked on the Titanic in 1912. She ended up not going because she fell ill. Turns out it was actually an out-of-wedlock pregnancy that gave her such bad morning sickness, she couldn't go. She lost the baby. She came the following year in 1913 and met my great-grandfather. She only told my mom, who she helped raise during the summers, who then told me. Great-grandma getting knocked up saved an entire branch of our family tree. My great-grandma had dementia in her last years of life and completely forgot English. She would mumble and confess his German, and eventually my grandma and I learned some really dark shit about Oma. Took a lot of time and a German to English dictionary in the 1990s. Her oldest son's father died during the Battle of Stalingrad while she was pregnant with said first child. This is husband number 1, died September 1942. 2. She married husband number 1's brother after giving birth to son number 1. She soon became pregnant with daughter number 1. When husband number 2 went to fight for the Nazis, husband number 2 died during the Battle of Kursk in July of 1943. 3. Great-grandma gave birth to daughter number 1 and then married husband number 1 and number 2's cousin. Husband number 3 and her were expecting child number 3, my grandmother, when he went to fight in the Battle of Hurtgen Forest. Husband number 3 died in November of 1944. He was her favorite husband apparently. At this point there are no men in the area who will marry her, and she is considered cursed. 4. With 3 children under the age of 4 in tow, great-grandma managed to get her ass smuggled to the US, specifically to LA during the last few months of World War II. She never gave complete details, but we figure she probably bribed, fucked, smuggled, and murdered her way out of all that bullshit. 5. Upon coming to the US in 1945, great-grandma married the man my grandma and her siblings thought was their dad, but it turns out he was majorly gay and paid great-grandma to be his beard. He died of a heart attack in 1960 and great-grandma never remarried. 6. Somehow my grandma, great-aunt, and great-uncle all have birth certificates stating they were born in the US and that husband number 4 was their father. We have no fucking clue how great-grandma pulled that one off. This one wins. In a twisted way, I really admire your great-grandma. She survived and made sure her children survived as well. More than a secret no one should know about, I just see a person that against all odds pull herself and her family off. I need a book about the whole history and details as soon as possible. Sorry for my English and all that stuff. My great-grandpa isn't related to us. He met my great-grandma when she was a teen. She had been raped by a traveling salesman and was pregnant, her family kicked her out. Great-grandpa couldn't have kids due to torture in a Japanese prison camp during World War II. He married her and raised my grandma as his own. My great-grandma told me when she had dementia and forgot it was a secret. Great-grandpa is 102 now and is the bedrock of our family. He's not blood but he's our family and he always will be. Edit, because people are asking, I asked their daughter, my grandma, after this, and she confirmed that she has known this is true since she was a young adult. My mom lied to a man and told him I was his son and frequently extorted money from him by telling him she needed it to raise me. I found out when he showed up with gifts shortly after I had moved out on my own. He had hired a pie after my mom refused to give him my contact info. He apologized for not being in my life and cried while telling me he was dying of pancreatic cancer and he didn't want to go without meeting me. I asked my mom about it and she told me she told him that so she could get money for drugs after she left my dad. DNA tests confirmed he was not my dad. Tested myself against the man I was always told was my bio dad. I only ever met him the one time. I took the gifts because it was such a surreal experience I didn't know how to tell him anything other than that I forgave him. My mom is the only other person that knows this happened. That is heartbreaking. How cruel of your mother. My great-great-grandfather moved from Romania to America and got married to another Romanian immigrant shortly after he arrived. Once they married he insisted they start using American names, only speak English in public, never return to Romania, and refrain from communicating with family in the old country. When my great-grandmother, his daughter, was a teenager it was discovered by the rest of the family that he actually abandoned his first wife and 3 children in Romania and left them in extreme poverty when he came to the States and married my great-great-grandmother. You know, real upstanding guy. Edit, wow. Wasn't expecting this many upvotes. From what I was told he was an abusive alcoholic and paranoid all the time. His mental health suffered a lot as he aged so I'm assuming guilt was factored into that. Another interesting tidbit, my great-grandmother went on to apparently become a matchmaker through her Orthodox church by helping families with young women relatives still in Romania connect with families with young men here in the US to pretty much arrange marriages so they could come stateside. This is actually a bit more common than you think. Anytime you see a big migratory boom in history, be it land, gold, oil or opportunity, for every story of an honest person seeking an honest fortune, there are a number of people who see it as the perfect excuse to sever ties with their old lives and start anew, ethics or past transgressions be damned. Alaska has been like that for quite some time in the US. People who have outstanding warrants in other states that aren't US Marshal worthy will flee to Alaska to hide from their old lives and start a new one, or at least live a similar life under the radar. My mom lied about how my dad died. Myself and my brother were told he died to cancer. He wrote us each letters of goodbyes and I still have mine. When I turned 18 the truth came out, he died in a murder-suicide with his wife's stepmom, her lover, who was also his psychiatrist. Turned out his wife was cheating on him with his doctor, and while my dad had some psychological issues, the doctor purposely prescribed him medication that worsened his paranoia. When he found out about the affair, he shot them both and them himself. Edit. For more background, my dad had manic bipolar depression. He was prone to extreme anxiety and paranoia when off the correct medication. I do not know what the medication he was given was, but I do know it made him far worse in his paranoia and manic episodes. His wife, stepmom, is the one that initially had the idea about the doctor prescribing the medication in the first place. When he found all the evidence, his already broken mind completely snapped. He planned the murders and his suicide. He wrote us all goodbyes. My grandma was raised in a Catholic orphanage under the pretext that she lost both her parents and siblings during the Spanish influenza. Turns out her and her dad survived, but her dad didn't want to take care of her, so he left her at an orphanage in Brooklyn and moved to Europe and started a new family. My great-grandma was raised in an orphanage in Alberta, Canada. Her biological parents were a rabbi and a nun. Neither church looked too favorably upon their relationship, so they were forced to give my great-grandma to the Catholic Church. My older brother might only be my half-brother. About 10 or so years ago, I went out drinking with my dad for his birthday. He got hammered, and told me that when he and my mom first got together, she was still in a relationship with a really abusive guy. She got pregnant around the time that she left him. So there's about a 50-50 chance that my older brother is the other guy's biological son. I asked him if he ever thought about getting tested to find out, and he said no. I don't care what any test says, that is my son. He also got emotional at one point and told me he really regretted talking me out of going to school for what I originally wanted to do in favor of what I do now. Later on, he punched the glass out of a jukebox because he thought it'd be funny. The whole night was a roller coaster. The next day, he seemed to have no recollection of telling me that bombshell about my brother, and I never brought it up again. I'll never tell my brother, and I'll never tell my parents that I know about it. As a side note, it would explain a lot. My brother and I don't even look related, but we always just shrugged our shoulders whenever friends asked us how we could be siblings when we look so different. I feel the same way my dad does. He's my brother, not half-brother, no matter what any test might say. I'm at peace with the fact that I'll never really know for sure. You're a great kid. Dad probably just needed to get it out. Now that he has his conscience can rest. My older sister learned as an adult that our dad is not her biological dad, which he and my mom both knew the whole time. One of our sisters is a real bitch about it, but my other sister and I say, fuck this half-sister bullshit, she's our sister. Yeah, I have a half-brother, but I never think of him as that. He's my brother. That's just how it is. Who cares if he has a different dad? This is pretty mild, but a part of my mom's side is very convinced they're Irish. In all the American, kiss me I'm Irish ways. My grandparents took a trip there. They spent a lot of time at a local pub, getting to know Irish singers and poets. My cousins have very Irish names, etc. 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 I took a few ancestry tests to nail down the rest of my mom's side, not a single % Irish in any of them. The family name, common in Irish Americans, is actually a Swiss surname that got translated at some point, according to the genealogy trace I also had done. My now deceased grandparents want their ashes spread into the Irish Sea, and my mom and her siblings are planning a big trip to do it. I'm taking the secret to my grave. I don't know why I find this hilarious. I have a cousin who considers herself a Hawaii native, they go every year, etc. We're first-generation Americans, we're freaking Mexican. She's still live, see Hawaiian best life. Lee on the car mirror, etc. I have a cousin who lived in Hawaii for about 6 months when she was a baby. She was born in Taiwan. This bitch, we're not friends, thinks she's Hawaiian. Does the whole luau, grass skirt, aloha shirt BS too. I call her out on it every single time. My DNA revealed I do have a decent percentage of Irish, could be Scottish, but less likely per the report. The rest is German, Northern European, i.e. the usual expected, pretty much 99.5% white boy American. My brother came up with folklore that we have Cherokee ancestry, because of the shape of our teeth or something, which cracks me up because the great-grandma was a Cherokee princess trope is a running joke to actual natives. I'm not sure he believes the results, but he is doing the genealogy so he'll get there eventually. I always find it funny that they always choose Cherokee. There are so many different First Nations groups to choose from, but anybody making up heritage settles on Cherokee. My great-grandparents were high school sweethearts and the only role models I'd ever had for a relationship, since my grandparents and parents are divorced and hate each other. Then my mom tells me that my great-grandma had an affair and that's why one of my grandma's sisters isn't like the others. So, there goes that. The closest thing to a happy relationship I ever saw was my paternal grandparents, and that's only because they would play a game of gin after supper every night. Besides that, they kept apart and my grandpa was really busy with work and volunteering. That two of my siblings were caught having sex with each other. Edit, they were old enough to know sex was fun but not old enough to know siblings weren't supposed to do that. It was shortly after she had been abused by an older man. B. That my cousin's repeated suicide attempts during and after college were because she'd been gang raped in her own apartment, and allegedly was arranged by her jealous roommate. C. That my dad had an affair with my babysitter with my mom's permission. Edit 2, Hall pass because my mom had no interest in sex at the time. Yes, the babysitter was 18 plus. Assuming my calculator works, she was 23 at the time. My mom seems to think it is my responsibility to be the secret keeper of the family now that my grandmother has died. I could really take it or leave it. The secret she doesn't know is that one of my younger brothers lost his virginity to his pre-calc teacher in high school. He was the other man in her affair until he went to college. Edit 3, yes, I'm aware this was predatory on her part, but he still remembers her fondly. And had a long-term affair with a professor when he went to college. He has a pattern at this point, because he also hooked up with his boss at one of his first jobs after college. That read like the front page of Pornhub. My dad killed a guy and never told us. I found out on Google one day. Imagine finding out that on Google. Wait a minute, are you from Florida? I was already drunk and Googling him to see if I could find any dirt on him. He's not a cool guy. This was a gold mine. Not a Florida man story either. Midwest paper archives from years ago. It was a drunk driving accident. My dad, being the bastard he is even when younger, was driving drunk and killed someone his age. Some successful guy with a family was killed and my dad walked away without a scratch. Damn. My ex-wife did this running around. Killed a guy trying to get back to his loving wife at 2 a.m. Working to pay the bills for their children's future. We were the same age as them. Similarities stop there. She's a covert narcissist, yet I still hadn't given up hope for her. For us. Her remorselessness ended that. My mother had an affair on my father that he doesn't know about way before he had an affair on her that blew up the family. I probably would have stepped in. Mom, you cheated too. Get over it. I was away from the drama, being 1,000 miles away, so it didn't really bother me. Lol. My great-grandma told my grandpa that the Jewish girl he liked was taken to a concentration camp when in truth they fled. It is said she knew they were safe. Grandpa meets my grandma shortly after. They get married, but apparently he still talked about the other girl from time to time and that she was the one who got away and how awful it all was. Many years go by, my aunt and dad are born. Grandpa walks around town and meets the girl from back then, is totally shocked and finds out he has been lied to all this time. Grandpa got sick pretty soon after that and died when my dad was only 5 years old. My grandma later once said she believes he died of a broken heart. My dad's biological father is his adopted father's brother, so, his uncle. His bio dad and his girlfriend were both underage, and she ended up having a kid. In order to keep it hush-hush, she had the kid and gave it to her boyfriend's brother, who was of age, and married. My dad doesn't know this. As well, my sister is only my half-sister. My parents were swingers and my mom got pregnant when they were trying for a baby, but somehow she got pregnant by someone else instead, and my dad is somewhat aware? But the real father doesn't know this, nor does my sister. It gets even crazier. They lost all contact with the guy, but my sister turned 20 and moved out to go live with her husband in a new state, and she got a job and moved around within the company, and becomes great friends outside of work with her boss. WHO just so happens to be her bio dad. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily uploads. After you've done that, check out one of our other videos.